So we talked about some of the lessons of your first few entrepreneurial endeavors, at least to date.
Yeah.
And Braintree is still growing and going. But what's the biggest lesson out of Braintree?
Boy, I don't know. I don't think I can make up something on the spot.
That's all right.
I need to think about that more.
Okay.
So
good.
many lessons.
Good. Well, in what you do, you see a lot of companies. You see companies come to you for advice. You have a lot of interesting clients as companies. Are there companies you're really excited about and exciting to watch their futures and growth?
Yeah, I mean, so the cool thing about Braintree is we work with some of the fastest growing and most reputable companies in the world. And so, I mean, GitHub started on Braintree like 3 years ago. And Living Social started with us when they were early on. And so we see the growth of these companies. It's phenomenal. We see all the behind the scenes magic. And it's a lot of fun. And we see companies who would never get exposed to otherwise. And so it's really fun to be part of that ecosystem. I think we feel very fortunate to be part of their lives.
Great. Well, I want to work a few questions in here from the crowd. Feel free to put more in to go soapbox or vote for them. One question that came up is, how do you decide when to hire an employee or get a partner? Let's start maybe when you started your business. Like, how did you decide to start? Did you start it on your own? Did you bring in a co-founder? What's your view on the whole concept of a founder, co-founder?
So in my first business, a cell phone company, I didn't have a partner. My second business, I had 3 partners. Third business, 2 partners. And then Braintree, I started it myself. And if you have the right people to start the company with, partners can be a lifesaver because they help shoulder the burden and they keep you honest because you can get lost in your own thoughts. But partnerships that go bad, and I had a partnership that went bad, is a nightmare. And even people who have been friends since they were in kindergarten, right, and they say, yeah, they're my best friend and we go way back, once you get difficult situations and money's involved, people can change and it can destroy a company. And so I don't have any good advice other than use your best judgment because if a partnership goes bad, it can kill the company and be really damaging to you and your efforts personally.
That's good advice. Along that line, early employees, now it's easy. People probably see your success and all, and it becomes much easier to hire. But when you were an idea, a fledgling with little or no revenue and trying to get people to not only join you but to stay, what was your secret? What was the most important way to make that happen? How did you make that work?
Well, I think we have a lot of people from Braintree here tonight, and I think the pitch we made was we said we want the best people around, the most capable people we can find, and we're going to create this environment for you where you can be exceptional. We're going to remove all the barriers, and you can be you. And we're not going to have politics. We're not going to have bureaucracy. There's no drama. I'm not going to be a jerk, and you just do your thing. And I think that was a pitch that resonated with people, and we got really talented people to come and park and to do their thing. And that's why Braintree, I think, had such a great couple of years, is that we really got the right people and let them go.
So obviously it makes a big difference. And we used to laugh because we have about 70 people on our floor in our building, and I think you guys had about the same. Yeah. And so the elevator on 8 and 5 used to get packed. But you always had great people, and we're really proud of our team. But it seems like you got a great culture and a great group of people. I want to take some of the questions here that vote, and the number one question, I feel like I'm announcing a lottery winner, is that the name Braintree doesn't scream payments to me. Why Braintree?
Yeah, this is a good story, a good lesson for me. When I started the company, I was trying to figure out a name, and I leaned towards big names like National Processing Company and Federal, like something that would speak like strong and secure, and because I was insecure of our size, because I was trying to go after big companies. And after going through that a while, I thought, like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't mean anything to me. So I wanted to do something meaningful. And I admire the second president of the United States, John Adams, and he's from Braintree, Massachusetts. And so I named it after his hometown, and it was meaningful to me. And so Braintree doesn't scream payments, but it was meaningful to me on something that I thought was important.
Interesting. First startup ever named after a president that I'm aware of. Very interesting. Great. A question about came out about the whole microtransaction business. A lot of things about the wallet. If you're 30 cents. The question is, what happens? The current processing fees don't seem to lend themselves to micropayments.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talk about micropayments being the future of the phone, of being your wallet. How do you see that unfolding?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a part of the discussion for a long time. And there's been, I can count like 4 or 5 companies that have been really well funded that have failed in this space. It's just hard to pull off because the credit card companies have interchange in place. So the minimum transaction, the lowest cost you're going to have is around like 12 or 13 cents roughly on a transaction, the Visa and the banks charge. And so you have constraints within the network on how you can price. So it's not like companies just don't want to. And so without those constraints, I think we could do a lot better. But if the card associations, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and Discover are willing to work with microtransactions, we can make it happen. The economics are very hard.
Got it. Another question in that world, apparently someone's been on your website while we're here. You got to love that. You have a credit card portability campaign going.
Yeah.
What's its impact, Ben? They even gave me the URL if I want to check it out.
Okay. Some of you may remember if you had a cell phone before 1996, if you wanted to port it, you couldn't. Your company would hold you hostage. AT&T would say you can't port it. And then Congress got involved in the Telecommunications Act, and they said, no, companies, you have to port numbers in between providers, right? You can't require someone to have to change all their business cards and stationery and stuff like that. And the same problem existed in the credit card processing world where if I have a business and I have 20,000 credit cards on file that I'm doing recurring revenue from, and I stored my information with PayPal, and then I find out that PayPal can't satisfy all my needs and I want to go somewhere else, I go to PayPal and say, can I please have the stored credit card data? They say, sorry, Charlie, like you're stuck. And so this company now is in a hostage-like situation. And so we said, why don't we solve this? And so we didn't want to go to government to try to solve it. So we created this portability standard. And I wrote a script for a video. We hired a director on this cheeky presentation of a hostage situation. The Braintree people were the actors in the movie. And we filmed the hostage environment of someone getting their credit card being held hostage. And so we launched the standard, and we did it. So Braintree wasn't present at all, so it was fair, and it wasn't advertising us. And I wrote an open letter to the CEOs of PayPal and Authorize.net, the 2 biggest providers we were competing against them. And I said, basically, don't compete on incumbency, compete on openness and fairness, right? Let's have a free market competition. And when we came out with it, everyone basically poo-pawed the idea. They said, there's no way it's going to work. These guys don't, they don't care. You're just a nuisance to them. But it's worked. So in the past, 18 months, 24 months, we've completed a credit card data transfer from every major provider in the industry. And so while they don't openly embrace it, there's merchants know about it and they bring it up, and it's a big decision-making factor. So it's worked. And so it's always a reminder to me that no matter who you are, no matter what your station in life is, you can make a difference. And that's worked. So now people just know it's part of the industry, and it's kind of forgotten that we started this 2 years ago.
That's great. So I'm trying to learn how to use Go Soapbox simultaneously here, but I want to make sure I ask everybody's questions, and those are the really great insights to share there. As you look, going back to the whole idea of putting together a founding team in those founding days, because that's where a lot of people are, 107 companies in this space alone.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how do you think about putting together that right team? If you were to do it over again, or you were to give advice. I know advice isn't, you're hesitant to give advice, but a lot of people here would like your advice. So if you were to give advice on how to put together a founding team based on what you learned, what would that advice be? Yeah,
it is such a tricky topic, and the opinions range so dramatically on this. I would say a couple things. One is we all need to recognize that we overvalue ourselves, right? We all think more of ourselves than we probably should. We're probably all overconfident. And so when you get in a situation, it's difficult to negotiate with other partners on what your role should be, what the equity split should be. And those human factors make it more complex. But I would say if you break down the company, you try to identify what is necessary to build a successful company, that's a good first step. The problem with that is that's going to change in 2 weeks from now when you change your business model again, right? And so I think you really need to find people you love to work with, who you can rely upon to work as hard as you, and that you're not going to have a free rider problem. Because if you have a difference in how committed you are and how hard you're willing to work, it's going to create a rift. So find people you enjoy, find people you trust, and find people who are equally competent, as competent as you are.
And when you talked earlier about being good at hiring, learning how to become good at hiring tech talent, what's your advice for hiring tech talent, especially in those early stages?
Yeah, I think I'll punt on this because I'm not the guy who knows best. Our team does a good job, and we've been modifying how we hire. So I think even 2 or 3 months ago, we recognized a bunch of problems in our hiring process, and we're trying to fix those. So I don't think I have a good answer for it. We've tried a lot of processes over the year, and I think we're going to get better.
Well, let's get better every day.
Well, so I guess I would say one thing that I had this conversation with a friend once where he said he found this brilliant guy, one of the smartest guy he's ever met, and he just wanted to hire him on the spot. And I said, I don't care how smart someone is if they're not a fit in the culture. If they're a brilliant jerk, it's not going to work. Right? They're gonna splash water in other people's eyes in the pool, and they're not going to play nice, and it's just going to cause problems. So culture fit's really important.
Great point. Great point, especially when you're small.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit, if you would. You talked about the what venture firms are looking. One of the questions out there is, what do you feel like VCs are focusing on today? What are they looking for when they're looking for a company to invest in? And what's your sort of experience from the front lines?
I guess it depends. I guess a lot of companies here are early stage and trying to find their footing in a market. Recently, I guess in a couple of years, it's almost been like the lottery, right? In trying to pick the next thing that will virally hit. And I think you find a lot of that mentality in San Francisco or in the Bay Area, and less so in Chicago. I think investors here want a predictable, sustainable business that they can project out and see a path of profitability. And so I think the markets are different, whether you're raising money in Silicon Valley or in Chicago. I think the investors have a different decision set. And some are willing to bet on lottery-style wins in the Valley, and here you have less so. And so I think that you need to decide what kind of business you are, and that's the market you appeal to for raising money.
And from what you all have done, what do you think the venture guys found most intriguing? How do you fit into their narrative?
I mean, for early stage companies, it's all about the people, and VCs invest in the people. That's the single most crucial factor in success. If you hit your strides and you find that you have a runaway success and your business proves itself and they don't need you, anyone can come in and run it, I think that's a different story. But I think it's all about the people.
Great point. Great point. Couple more questions and then one final wrap up here. One is, are you hiring? The question is, and would you hire an entrepreneur with a smiley face?
Absolutely.
Great.
So Charlie Trotter, he's a famous restaurateur, I think that's how you say it, here in Chicago. He has a theory that he doesn't want employee loyalty. He wants to hire people who want to start their own restaurants. So he wants them to spend 2 years in his restaurant, and he wants them to own the plate. And so they do the front, they learn the entire restaurant experience. And so it's a different take on trying to hire and the kind of people you hire and how long you want them to stay. Which I thought was interesting. He flipped the normal convention on its head. But I mean, for Braintree, we're proud that I don't think we've ever had anyone leave the company, which is exceptional. And I know that the day will come where people will leave, but we've created an environment where people want to stay and they feel valued and they contribute, and it's an environment that works for them. So we're proud of that. And yes, so we are hiring for a lot of positions, and we hope that you'll consider us.
Couple more questions, and then we'll go to wrap up here. What was the biggest hurdle for you getting into this competitive space?
Development talent. Finding developers that can build software that other developers want to work with.
And you think that's harder here than other places?
So I mean, there's a lot of religious discussion about the best place to build a company, and we have an idea on how we can solve this problem. We started a dodgeball tournament last year and a half ago, and so we thought, what better way to get a bunch of techies together and throw balls at each other? And so we did it here in Chicago, and we thought, there's always this discussion about where's a better place to start a company, the Bay Area or Portland or New York or Boston. we said, why don't we have regional competitions in each area? And then we'll bring everyone here in Chicago and settle it once for all, get a national dodgeball champion.
I saw that movie.
Yeah. So I'm not religious about where to start a company. I think you can build a company anywhere. We found great people here who are hardworking, who are loyal, and we've enjoyed being in Chicago. We've also found that we have not been able to find some talent we needed, in particular in this payment space. That there's just not payments companies in Chicago. So, Google and PayPal and others who have a lot of payment talent, we opened up a West Coast office, hoping to get much more of that talent.
And how's that going for you out there? Where
great.
Are you? And tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yep. So we found a ton of great people so far, and our recruiting efforts are picking up, and I think we're getting a great team out there.
Great. How big is it now?
I believe we have 10 people.
That's great.
Yeah.
We opened up in Austin a couple years ago, and a lot of talent and great. I mean, they have great work ethos and just great people. We couldn't be happier. Some of them are here tonight. It makes a big difference. It is kind of funny for them to say, I work for a Chicago company. Two last questions here. One, last one from the crowd is, which you feel free, obviously, not to answer. What's your exit, or what's your, do you ever think about that? Do your venture people ever think about it? Is that something you're ever comfortable talking about?
Yeah, sure. I think that as an entrepreneur, I guess as a human being, there are thoughts that can pollute the mind. And I think focusing on exit pollutes the mind, because first and foremost, you have to build an exceptional company. You have to be focused on building value. And if you get distracted and you start making decisions on how I'm going to sell my company or position it for selling, you're going to make wrong decisions for the company. And so I don't know what's going to happen to Braintree, but we are focused on building an exceptional company, and we want to stay focused on doing that, because I think we'll make good decisions by doing that. Great.
One last question. I think it's been a great conversation. You shared so much. For a guy who doesn't like to give advice and doesn't believe in sharing advice, you've shared a lot of great insights and experiences, so thank you. But sort of a two-sided question to end it, which is, what's Braintree look like in 5 or 10 years? Like, what's your big picture vision of what Braintree can be in a decade?
Yeah. We don't look out a decade. I think it's too hard in our space, but we look out a couple years, and we think that mobile will be a defining shift in payments, and the ease of completing a transaction on a mobile device. And there's been a lot of attempts to simplify it. We have some things in the works we're trying to do, but we're focusing a lot on mobile, and we think we have some solutions that will work to help merchants increase revenue, to help consumers make a frictionless transaction. But mobile, but we also think that there's this convergence of all these technologies that have been growing, social personalization, data aggregation, that will merge with payments. Because today, payments is a dumb transaction. You just exchange money. But it can be so much more of a rich experience. And so I think that you'll see more convergence with these technologies, and payments won't be a standalone product, it'll be bundled with a bunch of other things and more of a tight ecosystem.
Great. So it's obviously exciting. I can't wait to see what that means. I'm sure there's really exciting things being built at Braintree for that. And we're obviously rooting for you as a Chicago company. But you've had a lot of different careers now.
Yeah.
4 companies, plus a couple of interesting jobs in the middle.
Yep.
You're still a young man. What's the future hold for you? Where do you see are you going to do more companies? Will you give back in some other way? Like, where do you see the long term? I don't mean as specific, like what job we do in 10 years, but when you look at the next chapters of your life, what do they look like?
Yeah, so I'm not motivated by money. I want to determine what I'm worth, and I want the ability to have control of my time. So as long as I have enough money to control my time, I'm satisfied. My sincerest desire is to be useful to society. And I love the Margaret Thatcher quote where she says it used to be about doing something. Now it's about being someone. And I hope to stay true to trying to do something larger than myself and being useful to those around me. And so I have a few things I'm working on and a few ideas, but that's what I really aspire to and what drives me.
I'm sure you will. Thank you so much.
Thanks.